All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Cubs Live podcast. I am your host, Kyle Malzhan, alongside co-host Mark Talarico, and we had an exciting little three-game sweep versus the Marlins, which was very needed. But this weekend, the crosstown rivalry is back in action at Wrigley, and we have a special guest on this episode, Nick Matisek. How's it going, my man?
Good. How are you guys?
Good, dude. We're doing good. Baseball's back. It's May, not April anymore. We're getting in the grind of things, and the weather's pretty nice at Wrigley, so we can't complain. I mean, I won't give you too much crap because you are a Sox fan, but you're here to talk some baseball, crosstown rivalry. So before we get into that, Mark, this past week versus the Marlins was great, right? I mean, after the weekend in St. Louis, the Cubs sweep Miami out of Chicago, and we needed this. After, like I said, we got swept in St. Louis, 2 walk-offs. It was heartbreaking. We saw guys like Rizzo, Contreras, Russell all break out and have great plate appearances. Even David Bodie came up and did just that too. And by the way, we may have a little surprise about David Bodie. We'll see how things shake out. But I mean, granted, I know this is the Marlins, and you can invest how much you want into it. But in reality, 3 wins like this and the way the Cubs did was huge. I mean, we saw a few blowouts, and a nice come from behind victory. Mark, now, how are you feeling after a productive series like this from the Cubs?
I'm feeling better than I was when the Cubs won 5 straight, because those 5 games that they won, all of those games were toss-ups. It was really similar to the series that they got swept by St. Louis, because all of those games were close. 2 of them were walk-offs, could have gone either way. And there were so many games that were so similar to that against the Brewers when we won 5 straight that I wasn't feeling great even when they won 5 straight. So when they lost 5 right afterwards, it was like, okay, well, they've just been playing the same way. So
Right.
seeing the Cubs kind of their offense break out, that was really cool to see. And the second game of the series, after they scored 12 runs the first game, I was fully expecting 2 runs at most. Darvish got sent down. We threw in a pitcher that just was not. He didn't make it past 2 innings. It wasn't good. I was not feeling great about our chances, but they made a comeback. They won 4-3, and then yesterday was awesome. So I'm feeling really good. Rizzo's finally hitting above 200, so that's good to see.
Right.
We all know that Rizzo is going to be Anthony Rizzo eventually. It's just, when is he going to get there? Addison Russell's looking great. The offense is coming together. Yeah, it's the Marlins, but the Marlins, I think, was it 3 series in a row that they won against teams with above 500 records? Like they've been playing pretty well recently. So it's not just a total cupcake team. So I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good about it.
Absolutely. And it was nice to see Russell get in that home run category because he had the first month of baseball without a homer. So to see him, and Rizzo had 5 RBIs the last game of the series. We saw Contreras have 2 triples in a game. Guys like that who are struggling and had great plate appearances, and to, grow and expand on that. Now, like I said, Addison Russell had a great series, but there's been some talks about the Cubs going to check on with the Orioles for a potential trade for Manny Machado. Now, Mark, I got to ask you, how much are you buying into that for most likely a rental? Because I think it's safe to say he's going to dip into free agency come, the offseason. And what would it take for the Cubs to pull off a trade like this?
I'm not going to say that I'm buying into it. I'm looking into it, but I don't think that Theo does this for a rental, at least not for a position player, because Addison Russell, he may not be the player that the Cubs hoped that he would be, but he's still a valuable asset on defense. When he gets hot, he is a streaky player, but when he gets hot, he is incredible at the plate. And I just don't think that you can give up that much control that the Cubs have for the next 4 or so seasons over him for half a season. I don't think you can do that unless they're going to have some sort of extension, which is possible because we know that him and Almora, they refer to themselves as cousins. They're very close, and they've always joked about being able to play together. Almora's even said, that would be awesome if he did come over here. But Theo went on the record, I think, this morning and said that they're pretty much done with rentals, giving up future assets for rentals. And while Addison Russell isn't a prospect, he's still a future asset because he's under team control through 2021, 2022, somewhere around there. So unless there's going to be an extension in place, I just don't see it happening. I think that an extension is possible, but I don't see it happening.
I don't see this trade going through. I've talked about it in other podcasts this winter. I've got asked about it, and I don't see it going through. But I do think if Machado's on the move to Chicago, we're going to see Addison Russell involved. I mean, it only makes sense. But like you said, it's hard to give up Russell when he has so many years controlled on him, and he's still a young stud. He could turn it around just like that. So.
Yeah.
If he gets his bat rolling and everything else, because, I mean, the defensive run saved and his defense is very valuable to the team. You just hope his bat gets around because, I mean, 2 years ago he was an all-star. So it's not like he's, underperforming. He had 2016 was a great year. 2017 he underperformed, but 2018 is a new season. And hopefully after the series he can get it clicking for himself. But, I mean, if this Machado trade does, which, like I said, I don't expect it to, the best thing about it is if it's a rental, we have options. We can slide Ian Happ on second full-time. Mm-hmm. We can slide, Javier Baez to shortstop 24/7. I mean, we won't have holes to fulfill necessarily. It's just, do we go out and get that, rental player to try to make another push for the World Series? All these factors come into place. But like you said, Theo went on record, said we're not going to go for another rental. We're going to stick with the guys we have. So I don't see this getting done, but definitely some trade talks to be there. And who knows, does Theo check in on him? He probably does, but to the extent of how far it goes, who knows? All right. So the Cubs sweep Miami, and it was a great series. I mean, just all around ball was great. I mean, so let's talk about the north side, south side baseball. While the Cubs are in their winning window right now, the White Sox may have a few years left to go, but the future is bright for the White Sox. And no matter what state of mind these two teams are in, these series are always fought hard. I mean, it doesn't matter if the White Sox are losing 100 games, the Cubs are losing 100 games. I mean, you can feel the intensity if we're playing at Wrigleyville with both sides of fans. Everything's getting hot, heated, midsummer. I mean, the ball's flying out. So, I mean, we had so many heated moments in this series. So, Nick, I have to ask you, what type of White Sox team are the Cubs going to see this weekend, and what guys should the Cubs look out for?
So the Cubs are facing two of our three young starters we currently have in the rotation. It looks like they'll start off Friday against Carson Fulmer, 2015 first-round pick out of Vanderbilt, taken ahead of Ian Happ on the Cubs. So that's a nice one you guys could possibly pull over us. We got Shields going Saturday and Giolito Sunday. Giolito, former top prospect from the Nationals, came over as part of the Adam Eaton deal, and he was once considered the best pitching prospect in minor league baseball. Now, it stinks Moncada's out. That's the big thing. It really sucks that he's out and going to miss the series because I was really excited for you guys to see him go to work. He's been hitting the ball real well this year. Yeah, he strikes out, but he manages the zone really well. He's about, I think, 8 to 10 percentage points below the league average in terms of chasing pitches outside the zone. So he's got a real good eye. He's learning to adjust to major league pitching because in Cuba, guys are throwing fastballs at you. In the minors, he was just better than everybody. So now that he's here, he's in the bigs for his first full season. He's learning on the fly. And it helps having Abreu. So you're still going to see a young team that's going to battle in pitching. I mean, if Carson Fulmer can repeat his delivery, if his fastball is working, if his cutter has movement, he's going to put together a good outing. Is he going to shut down the Cubs? No, I don't think so. But for Sox fans, if he can get through 6 innings and only give up a couple runs and give the bullpen some relief, that'll be a great win.
Absolutely. I mean, like you said, you have a lot of young studs, and it does suck for Moncada to be out because I wanted to see what this guy entails because I've been hearing. Now, I got to ask you, how many homers, if he's playing a full season, do you think he can hit?
At least 20.
At least 20? You think?
He's got great power. On a little bit before the season on Twitter, a White Sox person, just a fan, tweeted at former Sox player Micah Johnson saying how much they missed him and wished he would come back, like just casually messing around. And Johnson replied, I think y'all are going to be good. You have the new Bo Jackson playing second base.
I mean, Bo Jackson, Moncada, that speaks volume to what he is entailed for in the future. So definitely a guy to look for. Now, like I said, I mean, we're talking about young guys. The Cubs have their fair share who are now up in the majors, guys like Bryant, Baez, Schwarber, Russell. I mean, all those guys contributed. Now the Sox have some nice guys in their system right now. They're going to be really good. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Moncada, Eloy, who Cubs fans know really well. I wish Eloy was still a fan, but it all worked out, the Quintana trade and everything else. What kind of prospects, Nick, are you comparing to what the Cubs had?
Overall, the systems both have had and have star power. The Sox you might be able to say they have a little bit more depth from top to bottom. Yeah, we're front loaded, but there even are some guys towards the back of top 100 lists such as Dane Dunning and Blake Rutherford who have the potential to impact the big leagues. Dunning, we got him in the Eaton deal. He was a first-round pick in 2016. He's got a really high floor coming out of the University of Florida, and he's a low-mileage arm because in a great college program like that, he was primarily used as a reliever, but he does have starter potential, and he's flown through our system. He's done well, and I just think overall one of the things we have on an edge from what those Cubs system had was pitching.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that's fair to say. I think the thing about the Cubs is they actually have so much money where we didn't need to draft, a bunch of pitchers because we'll take care of that in free agency, like John Lester. We completed the Quintana deal with you. I mean, we got Yu Darvish. I mean, pitching for Theo Epstein, now he wants to specialize in pitching because we got the hitting. I mean, we got our Bryant, we got our Schwarber. I mean, yeah, I would say when I look at Eloy Jimenez as a whole, I see a lot of Jorge Soler, but a lot more upside. With the power, I think he – what was that?
That scares me a little.
Well, let me finish. I think the fact that Eloy – how do I want to word this? I think Eloy is going to have a better career. I think the power is just – because if you see Jorge Soler, that dude has a lot of power within him. When I look at Eloy and when I look at Makata, I see a lot of Baez in him. If he can control his strikeouts and stuff like that. C's, I see a lot of Kyle Hendricks in him. I mean, the White Sox minor leagues are really good right now. I like the White Sox minor leaguers. I also like the Phillies minor leaguers. So, I mean, there's a lot to be excited for the South Side. Now, if there's one guy you think that is going to pan out the most, who is it going to be?
This is tough because ask Mark. I'm in love with all these guys.
Right. No.
Go ahead.
Now, do you have like a Schwarber type guy who just has unreal power, or is that more so like an Eloy?
Eloy's our best power bat. We got Luis Robert. If you want a decent Schwarber comparison, you could say Zach Collins, but I'd say he probably has less power, but he's a catcher who should be able to go from anywhere between 20 and 30 home runs. He draws a lot of walks. He's got an advanced approach at the plate. For him, the big thing is just brushing up his defense. But my favorite prospect is Kopech.
Okay.
He's got incredible makeup, and he's one of those blue chip guys everybody knows about. He's got incredible makeup, lights out fastball, and he's working on his slider right now. I think that's the big reason he's still in the minor leagues, is because they want him to develop that third pitch to a point where it's good enough and he can use it in the major leagues with confidence. Because if he only has two pitches, he won't hit his potential, and he might even, in worst case scenario, end up as a bullpen guy. Yeah.
I mean, the toughest thing when we're talking prospects is they have to pan out. And we've seen in baseball so many prospects that don't pan out. I mean, look at Javier Baez in 2014, a guy who struck out half of the plate appearances, a guy with a vicious swing. You see him making improvements, and 4 years later, he's having a productive season. And there's so many guys that just don't pan out, like Joey Gallo. I mean, you can say if he panned out or not, but for me, he didn't pan out at all. He was supposed to be this next guy, he's strikeout or home run type power guy. But it's tough when you talk about talent, because it's safe to say the Cubs, their minor league system panned out, and I think they set the tone for an actual rebuild. It's if other teams can do the same. Mm-hmm. And I do think the White Sox will pan out. I think that Eloy's the real deal. I think Makata's the real deal. Your pitching, as you just said, is looking pretty well. So, I mean, for years to come, we're going to see a lot of good baseball in Chicago, whether it be the north side, the south side, and crosstown rivalries are going to be really heated. Now, Mark, when we look at this series, I mean, a weekend series, Mother's Day weekend as well. So who's going to break out for the Cubs this series?
I think that it's about time. He's been kind of slowly boiling for a little bit here and kind of been flying under the radar and doing a lot better. I think that it's time for Ian Happ to truly become Ian Happ again. I think that that's going to be happening. Yeah, he had that game where he hit a home run from each side of the plate. That was pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
But people are still talking. It's slowed down a lot, but people have been for the last month been talking about sending him down to the minors when his OPS is almost back at 800. He has been improving tremendously throughout the last month or so, the last like 3 weeks. And I think that I think he'll have a big series because with Hap, depending on how much he plays, because once again, he's not an everyday player quite a bit. But I think that he'll probably play about 2 games, and the 2 games he does play, I expect him to be very productive.
I hope so too. I mean, Ian Happ is a guy who a lot of people had high hopes for this season coming in after the spring training. He did. I mean, it was crazy the stats he did put up in that leadoff role. I mean, then you put him in that leadoff role in the beginning of the season, hits the first home run of the regular season, and after that, everything went to a disaster. And now he's showing life in his bat. I mean, in the latter part of the lineup, I think he's knowing his role a little bit more, and a lot of pressure is not on him. And so for me, when I look at this, I hope that Wilson Contreras can break out, because if he goes, I think you're going to see this offense go as well. Sitting in that 4 role. I mean, the 2 weeks he went off in August last year before he went out with that hamstring injury, this offense was clicking and he was right in the middle of it. Player of the week a few weeks. It felt like everything was clicking right. So hopefully that after hitting 2 triples the last game of the series versus Miami, he can get it going as well. I'd love to see Wilson break out. I mean, Ian Happ's not a bad guy, but who gets more playing time this series? Does Ian Happ or does Elmore? Who knows how Joe Madden is with his lineups?
Yeah. So. About Contreras though, even though like his numbers aren't showing it, the past week or so, he has been hitting the ball so hard. He's been having terrible luck. I remember the guys over at Bleacher Nation have been talking about how every single ball he's hitting is over like 100 miles an hour off the bat. He's just hitting it so hard. He's just hitting it to people. So
exactly,
I think that's a good sign. It's weird to say that there are good outs, but he's hitting the ball. He's seeing it well. He's making good contact. And baseball is going to baseball, and eventually water is going to find its level, and Wilson Contreras he'll be Wilson Contreras again.
Right. The baseball gods will give him back. And like you said, I mean, there's so many productive outs in baseball. As bad as that sounds, I mean, Wilson Contreras is hitting the lights out of the ball, and if he lines one to center field 110 miles per hour off the bat, you got to say that's a productive out.
Yeah.
Now, depending on the situation. But I do hope that Wilson Contreras does find some luck. We'll see Kyle Schwarber get in on it because Schwarber bombs are life. Okay, so Nick, I got to ask you, how's this series going to unfold? How many games do you think the Cubs are going to win? How many do you think the Sox are going to win? And I know you're a big Sox fan. But you coming into Wrigley, I know there's going to be a fair share of both fans there, but talk to me a little bit. What are you thinking how this series is going to unfold like?
Well, real quick, I got to go back to Kopech. It's his changeup he's working on a lot of and I got that confused because Lucas Giolito, who's my guy to watch for this series starting on Sunday, he's been working on a slider a lot. So, again, if we can get away with a game, I'll consider that a success. You'll see on Twitter some people throwing around the hashtag, "This is our World Series." But I think we're going to put up a fight, like you've mentioned. Both teams usually come to play for this. If we can get away with one, that'll be good in my book. If Fulmer can go out and have a good start Friday, show improvements, I'll take that because he needs to string together a couple of good starts because he's one of my favorite guys, and he's got the makeup. He was dynamite in college for Vanderbilt, and we just need him to put it together now as a starter. And yeah, with Moncada out, my guy is Giolito on Sunday, and I think he might give us the best chance to win because he had a real good start last time out in St. Louis. He didn't get much run support, and he did give up a home run to Carlos Martinez, the pitcher, which never helps. But I think he could build on that. And he had a great spring too. His pitches were working. He had a slightly lower arm slot, and he's like I said, he's working on that slider, and it's coming along nicely for him. It's starting to become a pretty effective out pitch. So I think we can get away with one this weekend, and I think it'll be Sunday.
Okay, a Mother's Day killer, huh? A Mother's Day killer. And Mother's Day 2 years ago, Javier Baez hit a walk-off homer. It would be a shame if he did it 2 years today. Now, Mark, I got to ask you, how many are the Cubs winning?
I think that I expect them to take 2. if they lose the series, if they lose, that'll be disappointing. But I'm not expecting a sweep because I know that the South side, they're going to get up for this because, like Nick said, this is their World Series, and like they really care about that Crosstown Cup. So they're going to be playing their best ball, and Moncada being out is rough. They don't have their. I mean, I don't think Fulmer is going to perform the way that he needs to really stop the lineup. And
we have no bullpen, so
yeah, no bullpen. I mean, it's going. We'll see what happens. I think it all depends on what the offense does. If the offense plays like they did in Miami, I don't think the Sox are going to stop them. But I'll go 2. I'll go 2 out of 3.
I say 2 out of 3 as well. I think how this series is going to shake out. Opening game, Cubs are going to blow out the Sox, right? Second game, we're not going to hit we're not going to hit it all. Third game, we're going to win. I think 2 out of 3 is pretty good, fair to say. I think that the Cubs are going to face adversity. They're going to face adversity in a lot of series, and it's just how you can, pull through that. But I'm excited for the series, a little crosstown rivalry. Like the White Sox are getting good, even though Makata's out. I mean, it's starting to heat up in Chicago baseball. So that's going to be good. Now, Nick, I see a lot of fans tweeting like the World Series in 2020. How much are you buying into that?
I think 2020 is realistic.
Okay.
Because
now,
Rick Hahn has talked about waves of talent, and we had our first wave come up in the back end of last year with Moncada, Giolito, Lopez, and Fulmer. This year we're going to see Michael Kopech sooner than later. I think we get a nice couple months taste of Eloy Jimenez. And then 2019, we might have a couple surprises out of spring training. I think 2019, a couple of our young bullpen arms in the minors could come up and reinforce the pen. So that's another thing for Sox fans to have hope. There is hope for the bullpen. The Sox actually have a college reliever scout who helps them take and get good scouting reports on guys who are relievers in college for the Sox to spend decent draft picks on. So we have some arms flying through the system that are college relievers. And that's all they're going to be is relievers. But when you take those guys in the later rounds of the draft, what's it matter? So I think 2020 is very realistic. And even then, not everyone might be up. We've got the number 4 pick this year. So if that's a high schooler, there's minimal chance by 2020 said draft pick comes up if we take a high schooler. If we take a college arm or a college bat, that could be different. That could be another feather in our cap that we can roll out there in 2020 if development shakes out. I was looking forward to seeing Jake Berger. He just tore his Achilles again, which really sucks for the guy because he moved out to Arizona this offseason, his first professional offseason, and the kid trained his butt off, and he had a nice little start to spring training, and he pulled up running to first base trying to ground out a ground ball and tore his Achilles. And 10 weeks later, he did it again walking around the house. So I'm just gutted for the kid. But I think 2020, we can see a playoff. We could see a playoff team. But I think this year we do need to get a little better if we're going to entice a free agent to show that, hey, we're closer.
Yeah. And I think it's all about how you sell your organization and where you're at during free agency too. So hopefully your front office can, pull together with it. I mean, now if the Cubs and White Sox see each other in a possible World Series, and it's possible too with the windows coming almost at the same times, I don't think Chicago will ever sleep. I think that city would be buzzing, and I think it would be great for Chicago and it would be great for baseball because I don't think that's ever happened before, right? I mean, it'd
be insane. Friendships would be destroyed. Marriages ruined.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, have we ever seen 2 California teams ever play each other in the World Series? I mean, definitely the West Coast, AL, but I mean,
Giants and Angels in the early 2000s.
Did we? Okay, yeah.
Dusty Baker. Yep.
That would be crazy for Chicago as well.
Oh yeah, because they're literally right there.
Dude, it would be insane. All right, so basically what we're saying is Cubs 2 out of 3. Hopefully that's comes to life. All right, well, I'm going to wrap things up. Nick, I want to say thanks for coming on the show, and I hope we didn't give you too hard of a time as we're Cubs fans, you're a White Sox fan, but thanks for coming on the show talking baseball with us.
Hey, no problem. I appreciate you guys having me on. Always a pleasure talking baseball.
Yeah. Absolutely. We'll have you on probably later in the year. More Cubs and White Sox baseball coming at us. Good luck this weekend, and try to take it easy on us because we need some more morale in Chicago. All right.
Yeah,
Well,
I've been. Well, you can all thank me after this weekend.
all right.
Wake up a little
All
bit.
right. Yeah, we will. All right. Well, I'm Kyle Malzhan alongside Mark Talarico, and thanks for listening to the Cubs Live podcast. Go Cubs.